Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Wayne Liu. You're listening to the Raptors Reaction Podcast presented by Betway for all your sports betting activities. Hit the QR code that you see here on the screen or follow the link you see in the description. Raptors. Two things. Two things about this game. Well, actually, three things about this game. Number one, Immanuel Quickley, congratulations. That was a really good game by Quickley. He was the number one reason why the Raptors were able to create that separation, and ultimately that was the difference in this game, was how big of a run the Raptors were able to go on thanks to what Quickley was able to do. So number one, credit to Quickley. Number two, so many foul calls. This game damn near took 3 hours to complete, and there was no reason for it except for the fact that Tony Brothers and his crew called so many fouls. Was it the cleanest game? No. Obviously, it's a physical affair between two teams that love shooting bricks. You know, Raptors going 7 of 22 from 3, Orlando going 7 of 21 from 3. But the sheer number of free throws, 72 combined foul shots between the two teams, a combined 59 fouls in between the two sides. So this game just took forever to complete. And then number three, that tanking is starting to get a little obvious, man. If you don't want to call it tanking, you can call it a couple other things. I don't think it's just tanking. I think that there's certainly an element of young players making mistakes and having to go through a difficult patch here. But the Raptors basically pulled off a repeat of what got them the loss when they snatched defeat out the jaws of victory in Chicago. They basically pulled a repeat of that exact same thing. And this time, I would say it was even more obvious. But let's start with the positives, because the Raptors did win here. And Raptors did win because of primarily the impact of Immanuel Quickley. And I know when you look at the box score, 24 points, 8 of 19 shooting, 2 of 7 from 3, it doesn't necessarily look like he had a huge game that feels like somewhat close to what he should typically give you. But I got to say, you had to watch this one, man. He actually missed a couple of pretty easy ones early in the game. He missed like a layup from Scotty. He missed some open threes. But there was a stretch there in the third quarter, because the game was basically back and forth until the third quarter, the end of the third quarter specifically, where out of sheer desperation, because Scotty Barnes had picked up his 5th foul. He had actually been on 4 fouls early in the third quarter, so he got yanked. Then he came back in towards the end of the third quarter, which is typically not his substitution pattern. But again, to manage fouls, this is what they had to do. Within like a minute of him coming back in, he gets called for another foul. So that's his 5th foul. So he has to come off. So Darko has to get pretty creative, and he ends up closing the quarter with a 2-point guard lineup between Immanuel Quickley and Jamal Shead. Now, that lineup has not played a lot of minutes on the season. According to Blake Murphy, they've only played about 32 minutes on the year, so you know that this is a very occasional thing. But again, RJ had been leading the offense for the majority of the third quarter with Scotty out. And then RJ had to hit the bench, so IQ had to come back in. Scotty came back in, but Scotty picks up his 5th foul, so he has to go back out again. And so you had a situation where it was Quickley and Jamal Shead running the offense together. And that 2-point guard lineup really seemed to get both of those guys going, but specifically Immanuel Quickley, who finished the quarter. There was only 2 minutes left when they turned to this lineup, and Quickley had 10 points in that stretch there to create that separation where it was basically a tie game, 1-possession game, to firmly with the Raptors in control. On that stretch there, you had IQ with a catch-and-shoot 3 from Jamal Shead. You had IQ fouled on a drive. You had Jamal Shead fouled on a drive. You had IQ driving in for a tough and-one finish. This is actually, the Raptors very, very rarely do this, but they almost never do 2-for-1s on the season. Like, even when it's like 40 seconds left, Raptors have the ball coming up, they don't try to rush and take a quick shot so that they can create the chance to take a second shot. They have, despite the rest of the league kind of basically doing 2-for-1s, like it's pretty much a staple. And the Raptors used to do it all the time, especially with Kyle, but Fred too as well. They have basically not done 2-for-1s. They've just played it as straight up as possible in those situations. They actually did a 2-for-1. IQ went quickly. He drove, got into the lane, finished through contact, finished it. And then on the ensuing possession with about 6-7 seconds left, the Raptors inbounded to IQ. He beat like 4 Magic players up the court and finished another and one sequence in that stretch. So that 2-for-1 became 6 points down the stretch. So that was actually a really, really good stretch there by IQ to create that separation. Coming out of the fourth quarter, the Raptors had all their big guns on the floor finally because Jakob had been playing with 5 fouls. He was able to play. Scotty had been playing with 5 fouls. He was able to come back in and play. And then they kept IQ in because you got to ride the hot hand. And IQ continued his barrage. He had a drive where he drove it, missed it, but he got his own putback and he finished that play. So that's good. Then he had another one where he was working pick and roll with Jakob. The first time around, he saw a double team coming, so he kicked it to Yak and then got it back from Jakob. Then ran the exact same play. The 2 defenders came even closer to him this time. He threw it over the top to Jakob, who was able to finish on the roll, going to the basket. Really nice play. And then another play where he was able to drive downhill, bank, finish through contact. Honestly, could have been called an N1, but quite frankly, nobody wanted to see more foul calls. I don't know if I needed to see a 60th foul call in a game. This is ridiculous. An average game probably has like between 35 and 40 fouls. The fact that there's 60 and there's not even overtime is outrageous. And then IQ had another end of the clock finish where the Raptors had nothing going on the possession. They swung it out to IQ, and then he attacked, drove left, but obviously he's a right-handed player, drove left, so he's going against the grain, and then used his right hand to bank it off the glass off a really tight angle. That stretch there by IQ was probably, that was really, really strong by Quickley, and I'm so happy for Quickley because he's had such a frustrating season with 4 different injuries causing him to miss time. When he's been back in the lineup, sometimes he's up, sometimes he's down, but I think more than anything else, not even looking at like the game-to-game performances, I think when you look at the pattern, it's like when IQ is on, it makes a huge, huge impact on the Raptors as a whole. And of course, you say that, it's like, yeah, well, he's getting paid $30 million. Like, of course, he should have a big impact. But I'm just saying, when you look at the Raptors' last 3 wins, the common denominator, well, not 3 wins, but the Raptors' last 3 stretches where IQ has really gone off like this, that was the difference in the game. When I think back to when IQ first got back from the injury, so he's now played, I think, 11 straight games, so I'm really happy for him on that stretch. But when he first came back from his injury, that was against the Brooklyn Nets, he took over in that fourth quarter. He made every play down the stretch, did an amazing job, and that was the number one reason Raptors were able to close that game and also just take that victory. Now, granted, whatever, we put the tanking aside because we'll talk about it in a second, but he was huge in that one. When you look at the Phoenix win, that was in Toronto, and the Raptors sparked that run where they had 7 straight threes made to just sucker punch the Suns at the end of the game there. That whole stretch was ignited by Quickley, who knocked down 2 of those threes and then had 3 assists driving and kicking to RJ for his 3 threes in that stretch as well. So, and then you have this game where, again, the game was right there. It was back and forth, a lot of fouling, a lot of free throws, a lot of just nasty offense, quite frankly. And then Quickley goes off for that 5-minute period. And that 5 minutes alone was able to create the separation in this game. So all credit to IQ. That was really fun to watch. Now, number 2, obviously, there's a lot of fouls in this game. But I think for me, I wanted to focus on the end of game execution because once again, I'm going to go with the positive side, which is, or I guess I'm going to split it, the basketball side and then the tanking side. Okay. We have basketball and then conspiracy. Okay. Let's do the basketball side. Basketball side for the Raptors down the stretch here, similar to the Bulls game where they were leading in that one. They had, I think, a 17-point lead in the second half, and then they blew it against Chicago down the stretch, made every mistake possible, including Quickley, by the way, who obviously created the biggest mistake, fouling Kobe White for 3, making a 4-point play, and that tying the game. IQ took responsibility for that game and that foul. He knows that he shouldn't have done it, and I like that he had a really big bounce back. So what do you do the next time around? Because thanks to Quickley's supernova stretch there, Raptors now suddenly have another big lead in the fourth quarter. And I would say basketball play-wise, the Raptors actually just made a lot of rookie mistakes. Not even rookie mistakes, because a lot of these guys aren't rookies. Because it's not the rookies making these mistakes, actually. But the Raptors' young vets and RJ Barrett, Immanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, they looked like rookies when they were approaching the end of the game scenario there. A number of things that they were doing wrong. Number one, for me, more than anything else, they just don't play together down the stretch. They play together to give them the lead, to stay in the game, to stay competitive. The Raptors, you don't want to ever accuse the Raptors of playing isolation basketball. Like one of the biggest reasons why Nick was canned and Darko was brought in was to change up the style of basketball, which Darko's done a really good job of. But down the stretch, they start playing a lot slower. They start holding the ball. They start playing more tentative. And then they play against both the shot clock and also against their opponents. Then, of course, they're just not playing together. So you had a play where IQ is setting up the whole sequence, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to set up this play. Orlando Robinson looked mad confused. He's telling him where to go. Ultimately sets up the play. Play takes forever to set up. There's only 5 seconds left. And then IQ drives. Nothing's there. Kicks it out to RJ. Nothing's there. Tries to take a late three. Nothing's there. That's just a broken play that the Raptors would not do in any other sequence of the game. And then you had a sequence where the next time down, Scotty's like, okay, it's my turn. I'm going to take over, right? And so they give the ball to Scotty in the post, and he's in the post. He's jabbing, and then he ultimately takes a turnaround jumper. It's not close. It's pretty short, and it deflects off. Both those sequences, the Raptors did not play in the regular offense, and they were unable to then guard in transition because they took bad shots. That spiraled into transition opportunities the other way. And ultimately, that created more fuel, more momentum, especially on the road where the other teams, crowd, which, Chicago was dead and Orlando was dead. But because they started choking so hard down the stretch and making all these self-inflicted mistakes and not playing together, they start allowing the opponent to come back in. So that's the basketball portion. And I think that that's something for the young team they have to learn, right? Not only because the Raptors can sometimes fight and be in games and stuff like that, but like how to actually play when you're protecting the lead. And the Raptors, the last couple of games, have just not done a good job of it. And to me, it's like, even after the last game, where that was the whole thing, and they must have felt horrible after losing to Chicago like that, they learned nothing about that. And so they're going to have to continue to sort of like get through this. When you're talking about young guys getting experience, this is a vital part of that. The other part, which is the conspiracy part and the tanking part, I mean, it's starting to get pretty nasty in terms of just like how obvious it is. Okay. You had a situation where in this game, it looked like Orlando was dead in the water. It looked like the Raptors had it in the bag. It looked like the Raptors could do whatever they wanted, and they still wouldn't be able to choke this one away and fuel the tank. However, you had a situation once again where midway through the fourth quarter with the Raptors in control, Darko taking out his key players and going once again to a lineup that was RJ Barrett as the focal point, which is like, okay, fine. RJ Barrett's the focal point. Then you have Jamal Shead, Jacoby Walter, Jonathan Mobo, and Orlando Robinson. That is as much of a tanking move as possible to put in arguably the weakest lineup that you can reasonably put together in a situation like that, and throw it into the middle of the fourth quarter. Now, against Chicago, that was actually the number one catalyst as to why the Raptors lost momentum, was because of that lineup was in. Chicago went on like a 9-0 run, and then Toronto ultimately had to sort of close with their guys. Once again, a situation here where the Raptors offensively completely dropped off a cliff with that lineup. And again, when you think about it, it's Jamal Shead, Jacoby Walter, RJ Barrett, Jonathan Mobo, Orlando Robinson. How is that lineup going to survive, especially in the fourth quarter, right? They tried it again. Now, unfortunately, Orlando just couldn't get any offense going. So they actually didn't lose those lineups by that many minutes or that many points this time. But ultimately, that kind of really did at least slow down the momentum, because you take out Scotty, you take out IQ, you take out Jakob. Those guys are all out. They all played in the fourth quarter, but they were all out in that stretch, okay? So that's number one. Number two, when you look down the stretch there, and of course, like, you could nitpick in all these decisions on their own, but I think when you look at them in totality, it starts to get pretty obvious as the picture of it. There was a play where the Raptors are clearly collapsing. They ultimately give up a 2 in a 4-point situation when they had a 4-point lead. They give up a 2, which is actually good. Honestly, the last time they had a 4-point lead down the stretch, come out of the timeout, the other team hit a 4-point play. So at least it's an improvement. They only give up 2 instead of 4 this time. They give up a 2, and now the Raptors have about 5 seconds left, and they're looking to inbound the ball from their own baseline. And I will tell you, unless there's like a wide open inbounds where it's like, okay, the defense is, or I guess the defense is caught napping. There's a quick inbound. You get it into a really good free throw shooter's hands, and it's a safe pass. Unless that is like right there, ready for you, you absolutely call your last timeout to advance the ball. That way you can drop an inbound play. That way you can have a situation where you can inbound to the backcourt or in the front court. You have so much more time and space as compared to inbounding from underneath your own basket. You can make substitutions if you want to, because you know you're probably getting intentionally fouled by the other team. And the Raptors absolutely had a timeout. They chose not to call the timeout in this scenario, which is called like 99% of the time when it comes to timeouts, right? Clearly, whatever. Now, of course, the intended effect did occur where the Raptors get pressured. There's no open pass. RJ tries to throw a bounce pass to IQ right in front of, like 1 feet away, and the Magic deflect the pass, and it's off of the Raptors, and it's called going possession to Orlando. Now, there were actually 2 sequences down the stretch where the Raptors actually had a chance, because if you don't use their last timeout, that does still mean you can use your challenge. And the Raptors had not used their challenge all game. In fact, they actually just let the challenge go all the way to the wayside, which arguably could be another tanky move. But the Raptors had 2 chances down the stretch to challenge a play. There was a play where there was a deflection. RJ Barrett was diving out of bounds, and he saved it to Immanuel Quickley. But they called it out of bounds because he had to dive on the floor and the ball was rolling out. When I saw the replay of that, it looked quite likely that the Raptors could win that challenge. But that's a closer one. That's arguable. That's closer. That's whatever. So they don't opt to challenge on that. They don't opt to challenge on the play where they inbounded to Quickley and it was ruled off of Quickley. I didn't see a replay on that, so maybe that's just off of Quickley. Maybe it's pointless to use a challenge there. My point is that timeout is just sitting there 3 different ways in crunch time. That timeout could have been used on either challenge or just to advance the ball, which honestly, I don't even care about the challenges. If you just advance the ball, that's a normal thing. They chose not to advance the ball there. And on top of that, when you look at down the stretch, the lineups, okay, so similar to the Chicago game, Jakob Poeltl had a huge impact on the Raptors team. Okay, Jakob Poeltl is a plus in both these games. He was a plus 10 tonight in 26 minutes. Despite being in foul trouble, he plays 26 minutes. Last game, he was also a plus, I think, 10 as well in 22 minutes against Chicago. Down the stretch, when it comes down to, okay, the Raptors are struggling, young team, blah, 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 it's not working well. Both times, Jakob Poeltl did not re-enter the game. Jakob Poeltl tonight was so sure he was going to re-enter the game. The guy had a full-on zip-up. He's just ready, man. He's just ready. Like, he knows he's going to not come back in this game, even if it requires overtime. This game, down the stretch, Orlando Robinson, the backup center, ends up fouling out. And I'm like, okay, well, this is ridiculous. But, you're going to have to bring Jakob back in. There's only, like 30 seconds left in the game. And Jonathan Mobile comes in as a small ball 5. And it's like, dude, that's crazy. And you can't tell me that, okay, Jakob Poeltl's been on a minutes restriction, and that's why he hasn't come back in the last 2 games here. Number one, does Jakob Poeltl have a lingering injury that he cannot come and play beyond a certain amount, right? This is not exactly like Joel Embiid has a minutes restriction. I'm like, okay, I understand. The guy's like banged up, whatever. I guess he's out for the season, so that's a moot point. Get well soon, Joel. Seriously, it's really sad to see great players get injured. But last game capped at 22 minutes. This game at 26 minutes. So the existence of this game playing 26 minutes proves that the last game where he only played 22 is clear that he could have played more than 22, right? But it's arbitrary that he didn't come back into the game late in the game. This game, Jakob Poeltl, despite the backup center who shouldn't even be closing, all due respect to Orlando Robinson, actually played a decent game, but despite Orlando Robinson fouling out, Jakob Poeltl with only seconds left with multiple timeouts, no real chance of injury or anything like that. And again, he had a hip pointer. It's not like it's, the biggest injury in the world, he still doesn't come in, and they bring in Mobo. So I don't even want to call it a conspiracy. I just feel like there's so many signs for people who are worried, like, yo, are the Raptors going to tank or not? Is it like, are they going to risk these wins? I'm promising you, the Raptors are going to find subtle and, quite frankly, at this point, not so subtle ways to influence their chances of losing down the stretch here. And at the start of the season, when the Raps were like healthy, when the Raptors were banged up and they had a lot of big injuries to big players like Scotty, who got elbowed by Jokic in the face. IQ was out from the first game of the season. RJ, missing a little bit of time as well. At the start of the season, that was ethical tanking. That was like, the Raptors are banged up. No one really expects them to compete. They play hard, and then they get into late games, and they don't know how to execute, and they're unable to finish out the game. Down the stretch here, what we're about to see between, I guess, March has started. From March to April, we are about to see unethical tanking. And quite frankly, the last 2 games where the Raptors have blown huge leads in the fourth quarter has already been a huge sign that they have been partaking in this unethical tanking. Tonight, it didn't work. And by the way, tonight, after the turnover, on the ensuing play, Franz Wagner had a wide open layup going to the basket, and he smoked it. He just happened to smoke it. But there was a real chance that we were about to go to overtime once again in this game. Incredible throw. Incredible throw. And this is what I'm trying to say. This is, for me, I'm not going to be putting this on Darko. I'm not going to be putting this on the players necessarily. I think, obviously, like I mentioned, some of this is young players not being able to close out games. I think the overwhelming... Well, I don't think the players are in on it, but I do think Darko's in on it, and I know the front office is in on this. So this is a situation. So for people who are worried that the Raptors aren't going to tank down the stretch, trust me, what you're seeing right now is a masterclass in that sort of exact activity. So we're going to turn it over and get to your questions, because this was a hilarious game. Honestly, it's a win that feels like a loss, if I had to really, really be honest about it. And I think if they had their way, they would have wished it was a loss. But it is time now for the Tangerine fan inbox, and I want to let you know that Tangerine is the official bank of the Toronto Raptors, foundational partner of WNBA Canada and NBA Canada. And of course, they're not just fans of basketball, they're fans of basketball. They're fans of fans who have their own nickname for each guy in the starting 5, or fans of fans who stand 5 inches from the TV all game, or fans who can recreate every player's layup package while sitting on their couch. And if you're hearing this, there is no doubting your commitment. Fans like you are at the heart of what makes this game great. So this year, for the Raptors' 30th season, Tangerine has turned the spotlight from the court to the stands, celebrating the way Raptor fans support their team, because this is how we fan. To learn more, visit tangerine.ca/basketball. We're going to bring in producer Jerome.
Hi.
What's going on, Jerome? What are the chats? What's the chat saying right now, man?
Oh, it's dire. It's a lot. It's a lot of people talking about a lot of tanking and the ethics of it. I don't know that we have a lot of great questions out here, to be perfectly honest, but we have some comments.
Okay.
First off, let's just go, I will never forgive you, Franz Wagner.
Bro had a wide open layup to force overtime.
Layup. Yeah.
You're telling me Kobe White can give us a 4-point play to force overtime, and Franz Wagner can't even give a layup? Bro, we're trying to give you wins, man. Orlando, you guys need wins. How damn bad are you, man?
It's brutal. So you mentioned that the exec team is in on it. So here's a question. Will Masai and Bobby start enforcing the tank through the roster benching? Look at what Danny Ainge did in Utah tonight. Now, that's how you tank. Do you know who did not play for the Utah Jazz tonight?
Okay, Jerome, hit me with the injury report for the Utah Jazz. And I can't believe this is the part of the season where we got to look at other teams' injury reports.
All right, where are you? Here we go. Okay, so out for the Jazz, we have Jordan Clarkson with left plantar fasciitis, Lauri Markkanen with lower back injury management, Walker Kessler.
Management is number one sign. What are you managing him for? You're not even playing nothing. You're managing him because you're tanking. That's such a lie, man.
John Collins with the same affliction, low back injury management.
They're like, oh, my bad, man. We have uncomfortable seats on the team plane, and therefore our 2 vital players are now out with back spasms or whatever. God damn.
Oh boy. Colin Sexton, just to mix it up, left ankle injury management.
Oh, a lot of injury management. Wow.
A lot of management going on.
You got to save them for the Rico runs in the summertime, baby.
And honestly, with all the injury management in play, sometimes you have a person like Walker Kessler who just gets rest.
Oh, just straight up rest.
Straight up rest.
What? How old is Walker Kessler? Isn't he like 23 years old?
He's a young guy, isn't he? Let's look that up.
Yo, the tanking it's honestly, like, I get it. I totally get it. If you watch some Cooper Flag videos, you'll understand too why everyone's trying to do this.
23-year-old Walker Kessler needs some rest.
Yo, find that team, man. Find that
Oh
team.
my
I mean, at
gosh.
least we're doing it within games in a subtle-ish way.
Those are all impactful players for the Jazz.
I mean, the thing is, the Jazz is like, yo, you could put whoever you want in the game. You're probably still going to lose.
Right.
By the way, have you seen some of the players that are playing for the Jazz tonight, man? So they're playing the Pelicans. This is why it's a key. It's a key tank-off game because the Jazz right now, as of in the middle of the game, they're 15-44, and New Orleans is 16-44. So this is actually a huge.
The
game.
Pelicans also have a couple people benched, but the main players actually have legitimate injuries. Like DeJounte Murray has a right
tore
Achilles
his Achilles.
rupture.
Yeah.
Herbert Jones has a right shoulder torn rotator cuff. Like those are things you cannot play with. Obviously.
No, I mean they're playing Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk. Hey, shouts to those guys by the way. Kelly right now was 16 as they're starting Kelly. Dog, that's crazy. But the Utah Jazz in a game like this, man. KJ Martin, who's wearing 99. When did KJ Martin make his way to the Utah Jazz this season? Wasn't he a part of Nick Nurse's rotation? Kyle Filipowski, 22. I thought he wore the number. Actually, I don't even want to joke about that. Bryce Sensabaugh, 28, number 28. Johnny Juzang, remember him from UCLA in the NCAA tournament. Isaiah Collier, who
I remember that name.
He was the guy who the Raptors ultimately traded their first round pick at the end of the draft for Ochai and Kelly. So Isaiah Collier, Cody Williams, Micah Potter, Oscar Shibwe, who is famous for remember they wanted to get the game ball, the Indiana Pacers. They were fighting Giannis.
That game ball? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because Oscar Shibwe hit a free throw for his first ever NBA point, which ordinarily happy for you.
Totally
take the game ball.
Yeah.
But Giannis had broken, I think, Kareem's record. Lou Alcindor's record, for most points in a Bucks game. And they fought over that game ball. So Oscar Shibwe, Jaden Springer, Keontae George. I mean,
those are names. Those are definitely names.
If you're Svi Mihalik and you don't enter this game, like you have to seriously start shopping and like just look for houses in Barcelona and somewhere in EuroLeague, man.
Here's a reference for you. You tell me if this makes sense. Toronto Raptors are Tottenham Spurs of basketball.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's fair at all because the Raptors actually have won a championship, and Tottenham is famously a club with 0 trophies. This is a team that, literally other pro players will slander Tottenham for not just not having trophies, but losing their grip on trophies in very, very difficult ways. So I don't think that's fair. I don't even see the similarities really between Toronto and Tottenham right now.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
Here's a question. What's Darko's vendetta against CB? And here, why don't we just add this along with it? Did Chris Boucher piss in Darko's Cheerios or something? The guy is in a contract year and is watching O-Rob put a disaster class while he sits. Extremely unethical tanking, in my opinion. Says Donkey.
Hey, shouts to Donkey, man. I've seen Donkey in the chat. I don't think that he has a vendetta against Chris, but I do think that Chris has not fit the idea of a Darko Rajakovic player from the moment he joined the Raptors last year as the head coach. From day one, Chris was not in the rotation. I remember.
What is a Darko Rajakovic player?
Well, a Darko Rajakovic big is a big that's able to play make out of the high post.
Okay.
Almost first and foremost. And I feel like, that's okay because Chris can also play as a wing, but the Raptors actually have a couple of wings that they want to develop. But even last year, before the Raptors were tanking, because I think it's really easy to look at it in hindsight and say the Raptors have been tanking the last 2 seasons.
There's always been concerns about Chris Boucher not getting into Darko's lineup before even the tanking period.
Dude, the start of last season, they were not trying to tank. That's the sad part about last season is they thought that, okay, we changed up a point guard, we changed up a head coach. Let's see a different style of basketball, and let's see if we can make one last run with Pascal, with OG, with Scotty, and Jakob as the sort of core 4 there. That team at the start of the season was actually trying to win, and they just kept losing. And I think it was pretty clear by that point that they needed to blow it up. Also, New York was whispering in, OG's ear, and basically the Raptors had alienated Pascal, and they basically told him, we're not going to re-sign you and give you that extension. So, whatever. Lots of other issues, but they were trying to win to start the year. And so when they actually won on their home opener last year, they beat the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is actually one of their best wins of last season, considering the Timberwolves were really good last year. But when they beat the Timberwolves on opening night, Chris was not even in the rotation for that. Jalen McDaniels was in the rotation ahead of Chris last year when they were trying to win. So basically,
that
Darko
might be more egregious than some of the tanking.
Yeah, like Darko has basically said, like, Chris is an ultimate professional, which is the way that you tell somebody, like, I am screwing you in a way, and you're not complaining about it. Therefore, you're an ultimate professional. And actually, if you want to learn more about Chris, we had actually sat down with Chris for a one-on-one, and we talked about sort of his longevity with the team and his whole journey with the Raptors. I think it's pretty clear that, like, the Raptors don't really have him in his priority. To be fair, the Raptors have never really prioritized Chris. He's not just that type of guy where you're, like, prioritizing a bench guy, but he's certainly a fan favorite, and it does kind of suck to see him just completely get DNPs for no actual fault of his own. I mean, like, if anything, the only fault Chris did this season with how backwards his season is he actually tried to provide, played hard and provided some winning impact. And that is actually a crime now for the Raptors.
There's a lot of comments in there. One I remember seeing where Chris Boucher, unfortunately, plays like he's trying to win. So,
and if you're not young or bad intentionally, you're not playing down the stretch of this tank. So I think I think it's two things. I think number one, Chris hasn't really fit the idea of a Darko player, but I also think that nowadays the Raptors are clearly pivoting towards this tank. So, like, you could say that, like, you're trying to showcase this guy or that guy. You can always give a somewhat credible excuse. But when the coach says outright multiple times that Chris is an ultimate professional, you know what that means. That's the Utah Jazz putting guys on injury management.
If anything, the fact that they're trying to tank and Chris actually has been contributing to winning is only making it more difficult for him to get minutes during this time than usual.
Also, you look at the other things too, right? Leading up to the trade deadline, there was a rare blip of winning for the Raptors. They had won 7 of 8 games. And when you look back at that stretch, the contributors who really were able to step their games up were Davion Mitchell, were Kelly Olynyk, Bruce Brown, and Chris Boucher. And coming into the trade deadline, the front office made the type of moves that was really clever. They traded 3 of their, like, actual rotation players who were competing for them and turned them into 0 active contributors, which is a brilliant tank move. They took Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown, and say what you will, those guys obviously didn't have a future with the Raptors considering they're old and they don't fit the tank. But, like, they turn those into Brandon Ingram, and they have this situation with Brandon where they're like, take your time as long as possible. We're not going to rush you, but also, even if you are available to play, let's just, like, you got your money, let's just chill out, right? So so even though obviously Ingram is way better than both those two guys, you've taken 2 contributors and you turned it to 0 in that trade. And then you took Davion Mitchell, who is now starting for the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat love that guy already. And they traded him for PJ Tucker, who they have since waived. So another non-contributor. Everything that they're doing is pointing towards the tank, man.
I wouldn't even say since. Just finally waived. Just out of nowhere, Shams reports it was just yesterday.
I think do you think they even called PJ at any point, like, hey, welcome to the team? This is a situation. Like, I feel like they only talked to his agent. Like,
I think the answer to that is
you're not going to play.
There's definitely no open gym footage that says that.
Yeah, fair enough.
This is not a question, but this just came in the chat while it was going on, and it feels to kind of echo the sentiments of the chat. Man, why did we want to get
No, but, like, this is kind of how it is. Like, this is the point in the season where it's like you're only looking at the reverse standings versus the other way. I would say, though, like, it does feel a little bit exhausting when people who are so in on the tank, and by the way, this includes the Raptors organization, not the players, but the rest of the organization.
Sure.
It does feel a little bit exhausting when it's like a freak out after every win. It's like, number one, let people enjoy the few victories the Raptors will have down the stretch. Number two, this didn't change their position at all down the stretch. If you think you're actually going to sink below New Orleans and Utah with the schedule that the Raptors have down the stretch, this is not possible. And I don't think the Raptors actually will have Brooklyn or Philadelphia dip below them for the 5th spot. So the Raptors are more or less in a fixed position. Like,
there's a reason why Bobby did
we can't freak
presser
out
where
after
have to
every
pray.
win, man.
We have to pray to the lottery gods. It's not really a matter of the record at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you just started this one while we were in the middle of this.
Yeah.
Here we go. Looking ahead to the draft, who's on your board, Will? Is there a drop-off after the top 3?
So I have been pivoting myself to doing more draft preparation because the NCAA tournament's coming up. Of course,
do some videos about it. We'll do some videos about it.
Yeah, the Raps are obviously, looking ahead to the draft themselves, and so I've taken a closer look at Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, Trey Johnson, and Kamal Malawak. I feel like those are the top 6 right now that I've seen consensus across the board in different drafts. I think like probably Kasparis is number 7. That's the point guard from Illinois. So I'll look a little bit more into him after this. But those are the 6 guys that I've taken a look at, I guess, this weekend. I mean, Cooper is clearly in a class of his own. This is the number one reason why the Raptors, everyone in the league, in a position to tank is tanking. Even Philadelphia is joining the situation, which is very funny to me.
Intentionally?
Yeah. By the way, I don't like that the report came out and it was like Joel Embiid had to talk to ownership about shutting his body down for the season versus like just calling your management with like just going to Daryl Morey. I feel like that's a pretty big red flag when it comes to what's gone on there. It feels like a lot of relationships have gone into disarray, and it wouldn't be the first time that Daryl Morey allowed relationships of star players to fall into disarray there. So that's quite telling. But I think, Philadelphia is clearly pivoting. They still will have some random games that they win. Like they beat the Warriors the other night because Quentin Grimes had 44 points. This is the fakest. This is not Malachi Flynn 50 ball, basically, because I think the previous game he had like 3 points. He went from 3 to 44. It's ridiculous. But yeah, Philadelphia, I think they have an incentive because I think their pick is protected top 6. Otherwise, they lose it to OKC. So they're kind of doing the tanking that the Raptors were doing towards the end of last season, which was they were trying to hold on to their pick. And ultimately, the Raptors had to give that one away to San Antonio. So they're doing that. Brooklyn has definitely pivoted to the tank because they've done the same thing as the Raptors. They've traded away contributors to their team, and I'm sure they've done some selective resting as well. They've been kind of like weirdly feisty anyway, so they're still scoring a lot, or so they're still like being in games, but they are starting to lose a lot too. And then Washington, Charlotte, Utah, New Orleans. New Orleans is the one that's a little strange because they've obviously had so many crazy injuries on the season. I still think that they're probably trying to win a little bit, but ultimately they should also be tanking as well. And so, yeah, I mean, this is a situation. So, yeah, I guess top 3. Cooper is definitely number 1. He's in a class of his own. I think beyond that point, I'm looking at it from the Raptors' perspective. Like, if the Raptors ultimately end up with, like, let's say they stay where they are at the 5, or they even have somebody jump up and they're now down at 6, I really wouldn't mind them taking Kamal Malawak. I know it's not sexy. There's not, like, really, like, you don't look at his game and you see star potential. But I feel like a 7'2" center with a 7'5" wingspan, a 9'8" standing reach, who has some mobility, like, that's basically the measurements that, like, Rudy Gobert had. You know what I mean? And I feel like, it's not sexy to be like, oh, we might get Rudy Gobert after all this tanking. But it's like at a key position for the Raptors where they actually need bigs in their pipeline. They don't have a young big in their pipeline. I feel like it addresses positional need. There's actually a clear path for minutes because all due respect to Orlando Robinson or Jonathan Bobo, those guys should not be our backup center. And then he actually has a pretty good skill set. Like he obviously is pretty much a dunker right now, pretty much a roller right now. But he has decent hands. He's shooting over 70% on the season. At one point, he was shooting over 80% from the field. He is a good free throw shooter, which I think is a pretty promising sign of his touch for a big man. I think he probably has ambitions long term to stretch it out to 3, to shoot him a little bit of mid range, to maybe hit some corner threes. Pretty much every big in the world has that kind of ambition now, but at least there's a good sign of potential there with him shooting 80% from the foul line. So that's good. And then he makes a real defensive impact, man. I think the quickest way for a young team to go from being, in a tanking race to actually being a factor in a playoff race is by improving their defense. And you look at a team right now that's doing the exact same thing with the Detroit Pistons. Now, that one's different. They've drafted primarily to get young defenders in there, like Jalen Duren, like Asar Thompson. And so those guys are really clicking together now. But they brought in some vets, and they've improved their defense. And now look at them. They're literally going to contend for top 6 right now, which is really impressive. I think Toronto probably wants to make a similar jump next year. And, with a healthy Ingram, with a healthy Scotty, with a healthy all those other guys, without the actual burden to lose down the stretch too, without the actual outright tanking maneuvers, I think there's a real chance of that. But I think that they need to improve their defense first and foremost. And one of the best ways to improve your defense is to bring in a really good defensive prospect. And, a rookie is probably not going to change your life that much defensively. It's hard to remember the last rookie that came in and just like completely changed their whole team's fortune defensively, outside of Wemby, who is an alien, and Kamal Malawak is not an alien. But yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all for the Raptors. Of course, if the Raptors jump up higher, I don't think you should take them above like Ace Bailey. I think that there's too much star potential there that you have to at least try it, man. Like if you're in the position and you're number 2 or number 3 in this draft, I know Ace has some. He's not a polished player. He certainly has difficulty creating separation. He seems to really rely on difficult shot making. But on the flip side, he has more of an ability to make difficult shots in this draft than any other player. Maybe Trey Johnson, who's also a really good scorer, has a bit of that for going for him as well, which is great. But like Ace is 6'9", 6'10" freakish athlete. The slim, lithe body to be able to sort of like glide around on the court. The stuff just looks crazy, man. He's really tight. Like he's just able to operate in tight spaces, like, on the baseline when he's attacking one-on-one, he's able to score in a phone booth. He's able to be a baseline out of bounds player for you in terms of as a target there. He can shoot the 3. He hit the mid-range. He can finish at the rim. He just doesn't get there enough. I feel like when he gets stronger and gets put into more of a system rather than just have yourself create everything, I think that's different. I mean, one way that I think Ace has like struggled versus a guy like Cooper, for example, is Cooper's in a great Duke team. That team has a lot of pieces, a lot of talent, and they play a really great system. So Cooper doesn't have to do everything all the time, and he can sort of like pick and choose more of his spots. Ace plays on a Rutgers team that is basically just him and Dylan Harper playing ISO the whole game. And so obviously that's going to hurt your numbers. I feel like that you put him in a different context, a different setting. You take some of the pressure off of him too, because you probably bring him off the bench. You have Ingram, you have RJ, you have Scotty. That's already 3 starting wings for you. So you can actually sort of bring him along slowly, but he can be that successor option. There's real star potential with Ace. So I like him a lot. Obviously the downside is that he doesn't create separation, not a willing passer. Kind of has to like learn how to play winning basketball. But again, like you're talking about with a rookie. What you're looking at is their potential first and foremost. So if I had like top 3 fits for the Raptors, those are 3 of the guys. I wouldn't mind VJ Edgecombe either. He's got crazy athleticism. For me, he's just kind of small. He's just like, he's crazy athletic. Like I wouldn't say Russell Westbrook-esque athletics, but like he's maybe like young Bradley Beal level athletic. So like he's a good athlete, but he's like 6'2", 6'3". I don't buy that he's like 6'5" or whatever. The outside shot is coming around the last couple of months, so that's been good for him. He definitely needs it as well, but that guy's a really electric athlete. He's probably my 4th option here, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4 for me.
All right. Given all that, and you were talking about a bit about the team and where they could go next season, this was to me, but this is obviously to you guys. Can we have an all blonde hello and welcome lineup if we have a winning season next year? First, I mean, obviously Alex isn't here to answer that question, so we don't know what that would be. Would you ever consider going blonde?
Is there like you're an editor? Can you like edit me with blonde hair?
Like right now, no. But yeah, okay. we could do that we can do that maybe in post later on. You can take a picture of yourself with like a TikTok or a Snapchat filter or something that has a blonde look.
I'm 32, man. I don't know how
to
use those things.
I'll work with you on that one. But I guess
I go blonde? I mean, so how do I turn my hair from black to blonde? Like,
You have to bleach it.
I gotta bleach my hair. Does
Yeah,
that damage your hair at all?
It can damage hair. I've been, at least so far, it seems like it's been okay for me. So
Yeah, your hair
thank
looks
goodness
great. So,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But yes, it does have the risk of doing that. You are, I think, technically damaging your hair when you do bleach it.
What
so
if I
guess the first
just
question
bleached
is-
the ponytail? Is that weird?
That's like the craziest frosted tip I've ever heard of. Well, I guess okay. There's two parts. So it doesn't sound that it's likely that you would be willing to bleach your hair, but
I'm not against it entirely.
not
I'll just say
against it.
not against it. I can
But,
also
I mean,
change my haircut. You know what I mean? Like this is like
course.
a pandemic relic basically at this point, where like my
Right,
hair got so
right.
long I had to tie it up, and then I decided to sort of pivot to this neo-Asian style look, this Qing Dynasty ass haircut.
well, that's the other part about this. If the question is, if we have a winning season next year, are you willing to bet that you may not have to do it anyway if you don't think there's a pretty good chance that the Raptors get a winning season? It's one of those promises where you know what I mean? Like, it's like, would you do this for an unlikely scenario? Do you think the Raptors having a winning season next year is unlikely enough that you're willing to make this promise?
I think for me, when I go back to like, I'm now 8 seasons in on making Raptors podcasts, maybe 9 seasons in, quite frankly. They call me the Garrett Temple of Raptors podcasters, man. Damn. I'm a vet now. But like when I think back to 9 years straight of doing Raptors previews, I think I've taken the over every single time, including this year, which is egregious. This was like the most obvious, like, yo, they're going to tank. They have full control of their pick. They're going to the youth movement. Jakob Poeltl on opening, on media day is like, yeah, man, it's not important for us to win every game. Okay. I'm like, oh, okay. But I think the over-under was 29.5 for the season. I still took the over because my argument was healthy. This team has a better ceiling than that. I feel like there was like probably a 35-win ceiling. Obviously, they were going to go for a 35-win ceiling. That's good management by the Raptors to say play in for what. But I do think next year they will be more strongly incentivized to win than they will be to lose. Despite the fact that the 2026 NBA draft class is also quite good. I don't know why I'm trying to hear this right now, but the 2026 draft class is pretty good. I don't know if you've seen AJ DeBanza. I don't know if you've seen the Cooper, the Boozer twins. Just imagine 2 Carlos Boozers. You think 1 Carlos Boozer was good?
That's a whole other kind of haircut and hairstyle at that point.
That's different, man. He's getting Beijing in a different way. But
yeah, man.
But I do think there will be more incentivized to win next year. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that the Raptors will have a winning record next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. I'm going to leave you with this one, this very specific fantasy scenario. Who wins in a game of 1v1 between Wagner and Barrett? But this is the key. Barrett can only shoot step-back threes, and Wagner can only shoot wide-open layups. Who do you got? We'll say game up to 11.
Yeah, I feel bad for the rebounders, man. you might need like 3 Dennis Rodmans.
What kind of house are we building on these bricks?
Yeah. I thought the question was going to be who's better between Franz Wagner and RJ at first, and I was like, well, okay, guys, we love doing some propaganda on this show, but
no, but this is a specific one. Yeah.
Franz is. I mean, I like Franz a lot. I think I probably like Franz better if he wasn't on the Magic, quite frankly, because it feels like him and Paolo are just both fighting for the same ball, and they both basically want to do the same thing, which is like big bully ball wing, get downhill. When they play together, and this has been the weird paradox with the Magic season, is like when they've had injuries, they have played at a high level. They were above 500. They were doing a great job with either or even both of those guys injured. When they play together, it looks ugly. Like this was ugly by the Magic tonight, man. The Raptors are outright trying to tank, and you're still unable to take the victory in a game like this. And when you look at when you look at Paolo Banchero in particular, man, I mean, obviously Scottie did a great job defending him. Of course, Scottie also picked up 5 fouls, and it felt like, certainly his whistle was certainly very friendly.
There were some complaints about how many fouls Banchero was getting.
Paolo Banchero had 23 points. He only made 5 shots.
That's, yeah.
He went he got to the foul line 15 times.
That's
now,
a
of course,
treatment right there.
there's a real impact of like the Raptors being physical with him, and like it is what it is, right? Like he isn't easy to guard a guy who's like 6'8", 6'9", so strong, able to play off the dribble and stuff. But like still, he got a nice ass whistle, man. He got a really nice whistle, and that ultimately sort of bailed out his game. But to me, it's just like those two guys are both trying to do the exact same thing, and it's even better if they can just space it around them. Like the Magic were playing basketball, like the 3-point line doesn't exist until like down the stretch where they had to get some threes up to try to like make a comeback. But like they just like they're in the modern NBA, when you have a team that their leading player in terms of shot attempts from three is only 4, and Franz Wagner played 37 minutes and he only took 4 threes. That's their lead, like their leader in attempts for the whole game. It's backwards. It's a backwards way of playing. If it wasn't for the free throws, Orlando would have been in the 80s. Like with a regular referee, with a regular whistle, Orlando would have finished in the 80s, man. They play like it's 2005 basketball. And I think it's really just both of those guys. Because actually, when you take one of those guys out, their 3-point rate probably goes up. And it's just weird because you're not necessarily asking for Franz or Paolo to be like, spot up shooters. But like this is kind of like a way worse version of like what the Celtics were, with Tatum and Brown. Because at least those guys were still high volume 3-point shooters, even from when they were younger, and now they've scaled it up incredibly. But like, yeah, I mean, what they basically are, I guess, trying to sort of replicate that. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm saying this with their leading point guard out, and Jalen Suggs being out for the season. I feel really bad for him. He needs surgery. I think he might have suffered that against the Raptors too. That was a tough one.
That's rough. Yeah.
But like, yeah, they badly need a point guard. And as much as like it's alluring to have playmaking wings, it's not just so easy to have I think the role of a point guard is also pretty important. Like dictating play, pushing the tempo, getting on and off the ball quickly, getting into your set quickly. And I feel like with both Paolo and Franz, they take a long ass time to get into anything. And it's, in a way, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Scottie too. In terms of how sometimes he kind of limits his own effectiveness when he has to play point guard, because he has to set up the play, then he has to initiate the play, then he has to score sometimes on the play. Like it just takes away a lot versus when he gets to play with the point guard and you're able to set him up, and then he's just only job is to score. I guess it's like really alluring to play that like, what LeBron has done for the last like 20 years, but like LeBron's LeBron. Most playmaking wings are laborious. Even when we had Kawhi and we, God bless Kawhi Leonard, man. I mean, as a Raptor fan, we love Kawhi Leonard. We got the best season ever from Kawhi Leonard, But when the Raptors offense was ugliest in their playoff run was when it was the most Kawhi iso-centric, when it was Kawhi get the ball, everyone else clear out, and that was the Sixers series. Now, granted, obviously, he pulled us through with a miracle, so we, again, all love to Kawhi, but you notice that when the offense started being more Kyle and Pascal and Fred, and they're all involved, like, the offense went to a different level against Milwaukee and against Golden State. So, like, I mean, it's cool that, like, these big wings run the offense kind of thing. Like, I get it. The point forward thing is, like, the sexiest thing, it feels like. But, like, we're really underrating how much point guards help offenses, man. And, yeah, Orlando, they got a lot of issues. But they don't feel maximized at all, by the way.
I just really like this comment that comes from, I guess, like, maybe the general sentiment of, like, as much as we're trying to tank, why do all these teams we play against suck so bad?
Well, this is the thing. When you look at the Raptors remaining, 19 games on the schedule?
It's the easiest schedule, right?
We have the easiest schedule by far. So if you actually go to tankathon.com, what they'll actually do is they'll list, like, strength of schedule, and you can actually see, like, who the toughest opponents are and who the easiest opponents are down the stretch. So they have a column where it's like 5 teams, and it's like the top 5 toughest teams that you're going to play down the stretch. The Raptors are the only team in the whole Tankathon standings that only has 3 teams listed for toughest games, because those are the only 3 teams that they're even above 500 on. In terms of, like, they're playing Detroit, they're playing Golden State, they're playing the Dallas Mavericks. Those are the only 3 teams remaining that are above 500 that's left on their schedule. The actual, like, record, in terms of aggregate record of all the teams they're playing against right now, the rest of the season, is 36.5%.
Oof.
Like it's almost impossible. I'd never seen like a schedule like this where the Raptors play so many hard games at the start of the season and the easiest possible schedule in the remainder of the season. To put 36% win percentage down the stretch into perspective, the Raptors, who are actively tanking, have a 31% win percentage, or the Brooklyn Nets are at 35%. So basically, every opponent down the stretch, on average, is the Brooklyn Nets down the stretch for the Toronto Raptors. It's pretty tough, man.
It's pretty tough. And to close this segment out, I'll leave you with this in the spirit of this is being recorded on Sunday while the Oscars are on. Forget the Oscars, man. That ending was the real Brutalist.
Hey, the Brutalist was good, man. Brutalist was good. They needed a whole intermission, though. Actually, I think the Brutalist might have actually been shorter than this game by the Raptors. Hold on. Because I just saw the Brutalist like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Runtime. Okay, so it's 250-minute runtime, including a 15-minute intermission.
Okay.
So that's a 200-minute runtime. 200 minutes is, wow, that's over 3 hours.
It's a long time.
Okay, the Raptors game was not 3 hours and 20 minutes, but
it just felt like that for you.
It felt like that for me. Yeah. No, it was just like, dude, what are we doing here, man? It's not fun to watch this. Like,
fair. All right. Yeah. Well, that
Good
is
movie,
our Tangerine segment.
There we go. Jerome, before we get to the 3 stars, I know people are interested in watching us play basketball. So I actually have a little surprise for you.
Oh, goodness.
Jerome, because we've all seen my highlights, okay? That's what we showed over and over again. You know, I think
you really didn't tell me about this ahead, and we spent the whole day together.
We actually did. We actually just came from playing pickup basketball actually before this too. So we have seen you in our previous highlights. I'll just show that again here, just for everyone.
Can we talk about that play just like from my perspective?
I want to hear from your perspective when you're guarding me for 3 there. Were you tanking or were you tanking? Are you part of the Raptors tank?
I will admit right there that was some real unethical tanking. We played together almost pretty much on a weekly basis. Of course, you're not able to make a lot of them these days because of Raptors games, but we play very often. We know each other's games really intimately. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do in that moment, in that play. I need to close out on you. I need to fight through that screen or go under and really close out and not give you space. But I was just really excited about you hitting an NBA 3 in Scotiabank Arena.
Hey, me too, man. That's a great friend, man.
You know,
That's a great friend.
So in that case, I know players on my team are like, yo, why are you closing out? And I'm just sucking.
A comment here from the chat for the podcast.
How many times have you played that?
Will is sucking these highlights dry for some content. Yeah, absolutely, man. Have you seen the Raptors? What do you think we're going to make content out of?
How many times have you played that clip in the last week?
6.
That's impressive. So you average more than the amount of games we've covered since.
Oh yeah, no, this is just from this game and last game alone. You don't understand. When you guys were at a concert this weekend, Charlotte A. Wilson, great Toronto artist, by the way. Shouts to Charlotte.
Oh, it was an incredible concert.
When you guys were away at the concert and I was going solo, like I ran that thing back 5 times, man.
Oh my goodness.
That was like when LeBron hit the game winner over OG for the Levanto shot. And the whole SportsCenter top 10 was just
over and over.
The whole React pod was just me hitting that 3. However, we've established that you were really excited for me to hit a 3.
I was.
I will also tell the audience, as a good friend, I was also extremely excited when you hit this 3. Roll the tape.
Oh, that's very kind.
You can hear me yell, I told you.
Yeah. No, it's that's the other side that's really funny about this. You would think as some for just to clear it up, I'm not on Will's team. Clearly, you can see in that other play. In that game where I'm hitting that 3, Will's team is not playing, so he is just a spectator on the side. So he can.
I believe that's called the consolation game.
No, that wasn't the consolation game.
That was
an early game. That was an early game.
I'm not gonna lie, your team was playing for consolation.
We were went 0-4 on the day. But it was a pretty fun moment because we were down by 3 and we were going by 1s and 2s, so we desperately needed a 3.
Yeah.
just to like keep it close because there are only a couple of seconds left. So it's hard to tell because you don't have enough lead in on that clip. That was off the inbound. I think I caught it and then like pulled up for it. And then I think part of the reason why you were super excited is because you thought I tied the game. Alex thought so.
Oh,
too.
no. I didn't think you tied the game. I knew you guys were down 3.
Okay.
I was just excited because you made a 3, and I was really happy. Let's see it again.
Oh, yeah.
That's me selling, I told you, and that's also me saying, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right into that, man.
You can't see it because I walk out of frame, but I basically just like turn away and just walk calmly back to the other side before closing out for like defense again. But I remember in that moment, very similarly to me being very excited about you hitting the 3 on me, I was like, that one was for Will. Because what people don't
William, this is for you.
Because what people don't understand about what's happened in our history, like I joined these guys this season, and this is also like the first amount of times I've really played young Steve Novak. I love that. The comment for people listening, it says from SC, Jerome is a young Steve Novak.
Oh, man.
Yeah, since I've joined the show, we'll talk about more of this. We have a banter pod coming this week. It was supposed to be tomorrow, but we're going to move it to Wednesday to give Alex some time to recover. He's a little bit under the weather.
Yeah. Get well soon, Alex.
Get well soon, Alex.
It's not easy hitting 3 bars on Ossington at your big age.
Oh, no. I was saving that part. But
Ennis Ezra comes back for 1 weekend, and Alex is out, man.
He's back. But yeah, ever since I started playing basketball with Will has actually it's the meme of you suddenly become too important at your job, which you did say to me at one of our runs. You've put the onus on me to carry the hello and welcome brand as like the de facto scorer and maybe our best player. But so when we go to these things, I do feel like a little bit of pressure to have to show up for you on your
really?
Yeah. In a good way. Like that happened to us on just a few days before that. We had our Saturday run where same thing happened.
I'm so sorry that Asian parenting is manifesting in this fashion for both of us.
That's great.
Could you tell that I had a lot of expectations put on me?
Joseph Cassidy asks, Raptors Republic versus Hello and Welcome when? It kind of was happening already. And,
I was on Samson's team though.
I was on Lewis's team, so we both had
right.
it.
Wow,
Yeah.
you were playing against Lewis in that game, according to all reports.
We'll talk about that on the banter pod. Okay,
Lewis is moving like Julius Randle. I'll just say that much.
Oh goodness. But yes, no. It was. Thank you for sharing that clip. I'm sure we're gonna play it like 6 more times over once we get to the game or get to the banter pod. But
we can't pretend like we only ever play basketball one time. By the way, we are now so we played basketball earlier today, and this is a Sunday. I literally, one of my neighbors was just like, hey, I've seen you play basketball at the park. Would you like to come play pickup basketball?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yes, I'm in, stranger. Let's do it. He's like, to be clear, I'm not even going to be there. I'm like, no problem. I don't care.
Yeah.
Pure strangers, downtown, I don't care. And then I'm like, yo, Jerome, do you want to come play? And you're like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah,
so we're now part of 3 pickup basketball runs, man.
This is great.
This is nuts.
I
So
love basketball. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Also,
let's
before you
what's
go
up?
to your awards, just like one quick comment here from Tala. Please don't replay it on the banter pod.
Oh, really? Because there's Alex Wong highlights too,
We do have Alex Wong highlights as well. We have a lot to cover. But yes, banter pod coming. Oh, we'll talk about it after. Let's get to your awards.
It's health permitting, This isn't tanking, okay? Unlike the Utah Jazz, these are real injuries. By the way, the Utah Jazz, in a 6-point game with 5 minutes left as we record here against the New Orleans Hornets or the New Orleans Pelicans, they're down 6.
Okay,
which I would argue is up 6 based on the result that they want. But I actually need not a footage of the actual game, but I want a box-in-box reaction of Danny Ainge, the GM for Utah, and also I guess David Griffin, the GM for the Pelicans. Like, I need a box-in-box of those two guys' live reactions because I think they do that sometimes in hockey. When
the
Leafs
back in the day, they would cut to Kyle Dubas, like, reacting in the box.
Yeah, they're like, the Leafs just blew another Game 7, and it's, like, panned to the GM. Yo, I swear they don't set up the Masai Bobby like that. They never be like, oh, Raptors, LeBronto, and then like, boom, they zoom over to Bobby.
No, not that, but they do cut to Masai every now and then when he's around, just kind of like patiently watching from the Vaughn.
But they never show the reactions. Like Kyle Dubas was like up there like acting like me in the media room.
Yeah.
So anyway, your 3 stars from this win. By the way, the Raptors did win, so that was great. Number 1 star, Immanuel Quickley. Super happy for IQ. Made up for the mistake that obviously cost them the Chicago Bulls game. Wasn't still a great game overall, but still had a huge impact, especially at the end of the third quarter to start the fourth quarter as well. 24 points for Quick. 4 assists, and all that in 33 minutes. Did a really good job. Don't even look at the efficiency. It's just the impact and sort of that boost and that push he's able to give the team is really game-changing for the Raptors, because I know Quick hasn't been on that often, but when he's on, it lifts the whole team, just like similar to the win over Phoenix. Second star, I'll give it to RJ. Down the stretch, certainly he was not effective. And again, like, pretty much all the Raptors did not look very composed when it comes to offensively or defensively down the stretch. And that allowed the Orlando Magic to come back and threaten to potentially force OT here. But he still had a pretty good game overall. 22 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 7 of 13 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3, 6 of 10 from the foul line. Obviously, that's got to improve. But, like, if you had to actually sum up what RJ Barrett has done as a Raptor, and this is now a full calendar year of RJ Barrett being a Raptor now since being traded from last season, he's been giving you 22, 5, and 5, shooting 7 of 13 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, and oddly enough, 60% from the foul line. Like, this is pretty close to his average of the season. However, I'll have to say the context of this game is Orlando super physical. It's very difficult to play around these type of guys. He's getting guarded by bigger players all the time. So it was actually a really physically tough, an offensively tough game from RJ Barrett. And that's one of the things, is like RJ's not necessarily nice when it comes to sort of like his sort of moves, but he is tough. And I think that, like, yeah, RJ played a really good game here tonight. And then your third star, I'll give it to Jamal Shed. Jamal gave the Raptors a really nice boost, especially in the second quarter when he knocked down back-to-back threes. 12 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals for Jamal in 17 minutes played. 4 of 8 from the field, knocked down 2 of 5 from 3 for himself. He had an and one. I thought him and IQ and the 2-point guard lineup looked nice. I think, if the Raptors were trying to win, they might actually try to do more of that sometimes, especially when they're trying to make up for those minutes when some of their main guys are out. But Jamal continues to build confidence from 3 at the start of the season. It was like the biggest thing coming into the year was like, you know what? He was a real big winner at Houston, but can he shoot the 3, especially at an NBA level? Because he didn't shoot a 3 well in college. He's put so much work and effort and also built so much confidence in his 3 that, like, there's no doubt right now. He's taking all the right 3s. He's never forcing it, but he's taking and making the right 3s. And then he's actually learned how to be aggressive. It's just a key point as a point guard. But he has now gotten a really down where he's able to use that quick burst of quick, like, speed. And he does have a really good change of speed, but he darts into the lane, plays fearless, and then that often leads to collapsing defenses and then him kicking it out for 3s. Sometimes it does lead to him having turnovers, but tonight I thought it worked really well. And big shouts to Jamal Shed, man. I mean, he also plays tough. One of my, small things as a Raptor fan, having watched Kyle Lowry for so long, is like, when I see a small point guard switched onto a big forward, like how Paolo was switched on to Jamal, and Jamal did a great job of, I think he didn't even front him. I think he actually just stayed behind him, but played him tough, didn't give up any sort of space on the post entry pass, and the pass was a little bit long. I think Jamal might have bumped him a little bit, but ultimately that pass was thrown, and they tried to post up and bully Jamal. Jamal ultimately gets the steal on that play and got the Raptors out in transition. I love that shit. That's what Kyle and even Fred to a lesser degree, but especially Kyle, they did that so often. And I love that about Jamal, man. He actually reminds me so much of the old point guards the Raptors had. So credit to Jamal. He played a really good game. Your Gerald Henderson Award winner, that's going to go to Corey Joseph. 10 minutes off the bench for Orlando, plus 14. Certainly was able to really impart a lot of energy and movement into the Orlando offense, which is very stagnant most of the time. But he did a really good job on both ends of the floor when he came in and played. And it's just a testament to him being a great professional, man. I mean, Corey Joseph, like, this guy was drafted so long ago now. I think 2010, he was like the 30th pick for San Antonio out of one season in Texas playing with Tristan Thompson. He's been an NBA champion. He's been on so many different teams, and now he's been brought in specifically to be like, I mean, playable depth, but generally speaking, he's like their version of Garrett Temple. Corey's a gentleman. Corey is, he's repped the six forever. I was so happy to see him join the Raptors as well. He was a really good Raptor too. And salute to Corey, man. One of my favorite guys in the league. And he came in and, like the pro that he is, was able to give a big boost in the arm for Orlando. So shouts to Corey Joseph. Shouts to all of you in the chat. Shouts to Jerome Cheng once again. We're going to go and wrap it up here because, I don't know. Are you going to watch the Oscars? Is that your thing? Are you Oscars she-boy?
I will probably just check like any of the speeches that pop up on X and
Fair.
And then also coming out of it, just watch the movies that I've missed so far. So yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, let's watch one movie before we go, baby.
Oh yeah!
Bang! What a shot for. I was going to say Chung-Ri, but that doesn't really work.
That's crazy.
It's verging on being racist to call you that.
Yeah. But yeah, for everyone listening, we are going to do a banter pod this week. We had some fans who have come to some of our events and asked us when we're doing it. We haven't done one in a minute. Yeah. So we got a banter pod coming this week. The aim is going to be Wednesday. We're looking to go live. I think something like let's do like a 1 o'clock-ish type thing. Go live.
We do love getting your questions. I mean, you can always send it to them the old way or like the classic way, which is
Stephen LeBron.
You can send a whole email if you want to send a long message. Hit info@stephenlebron.com. It's always a great chance to hear your thoughts, and we love receiving your emails. So definitely hit up our inbox. I think there's also info@helloandwelcome.show as well. There's like multiple stuff.
Alex never uses that, so it is just info@Stephen LeBron.
Right to Alex's inbox. So info@stephenlebron.com.
We also have, if you follow us on Instagram, we do have a prompt that's up there right now in our stories, so you can definitely reply to that and send them through. You can also tweet at us.
Reply on Twitter. Whatever you want, man. I tried Blue Sky last time. People weren't really like responding. To be fair, I never used that platform, so.
You know what? Give it one more shot. We'll try to do at least one Blue Sky question on the show.
Look, I'm not in favor of using Twitter, but I just feel like that's still where everyone is.
That is where everyone is. But let's just give it a shot. Let's see what's up.
Do it from the show account.
All right.
Do it from the show account, man.
Oh goodness.
So but otherwise, catch us live. We love getting your commentary live. It's also really fun to sort of like take your questions, and it'll be fun to just sort of like relax, chill out, talk about whatever, and
we already have some segments lined up with Alex that we're looking forward to.
Pretty excited. Yeah. So y'all need to start a Discord. I don't know. Would people actually join a Hello and Welcome Discord?
That's not for us to answer.
Yeah. Oh, here's a good one. We'll ever go disc golfing? Isn't this just called frisbee golf? Is it called disc golfing or frisbee golf? But I actually would love to.
Same. Yeah.
Because I actually played a lot of frisbee back in my day. Not to brag or anything, but I was the team captain.
Oh boy!
Only thing's gonna happen is you could.
Why are you suddenly Jay-Z when you're talking about that? You got into a real tone there.
Yeah, actually, at the end of the season, the coach came up to me and was like, "Oh, the team named you MVP of the team.
Oh yeah.
Do you accept?" And I was like, "No, I actually don't accept." And I actually deferred it to one of my friends on the team.
Wow, real MVP.
So real MVP, but
real MVP.
It was actually pretty fun, man. I mean, not gonna brag, but I did throw the game-winning touchdown for us to move into West Finals.
This.
Oh, speaking of bragging, here's another three.
What's up?
All right, we're done.
Cash out.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway, and we'll catch you after the next Raptor game.